Welcome to the New Year edition of Business Week, the program that brings you top business stories that made the headlines through the course of the week, including special news features, interviews, market data, and much more. Welcome to the show. Here's the highlight of the biggest stories we tracked for you over the course of this week. On the local front, Nigeria's external reserves rose by $5.12 billion in 2021, and this is according to data obtained from the Central Bank of Nigeria. And now, the number of workers with pension accounts under the contributory pension scheme rose by 245,385 in just 9 months to over 9 million workers. A total of $3.5 billion has also been paid by the federal government to 5 international oil companies as cash call arrears repayment to the IOCs, leaving an outstanding balance of $1.15 billion. And I'll bring you some reports from the international front. Apple Incorporation at the start of this week became the first company to hit a $3 trillion stock market value before ending the day a hair below the milestone, as investors bet the iPhone maker would also keep launching best-selling products as it explores new markets such as automated cars and virtual reality. And for more in the auto space, Tesla Incorporation shares started the year 2022 with stellar gains after the electric car maker reported record deliveries for the fourth quarter, allaying fears of supply chain woes that have hit automakers. And in China, Evergrande Group is seeking a 6-month delay in the redemption and coupon payments of a 4.5 billion yuan, which is an equivalent of $157 million bond in a meeting with bondholders this weekend, underscoring the pressure on the debt-laden property developer. Well, it's about that time where we bring you special packages prepared by our correspondents.
It is Governor Sanwo-Olu's quarterly official visit to the ongoing construction between the Red Line and the Blue Line Railway. The first port of call was the Ikeja train station. It is the biggest of all the Red Line stations. Governor Sanwo-Olu is happy with the pace of work here.
The rail works at Ikeja is going on well. We're hoping that they will even finish, especially the bridge component, slightly ahead of schedule because of the traffic impact that it has for motorists in that corridor. We push them to ensure that maybe by the end of the third quarter, the bridge should be completed. Similarly, also at the Butemeta, to have an overpass from Muritala Mohammed onto Old Apapa Road.
Yaba is the next destination. The station is at the decking stage to its second floor.
There are stores inside the Yaba main market, and part of the things we need to encourage them in is to go inside the market as against selling on the rail track. So we will also ensure that the market board and everything will bring all of them together and see how we solve, the problem for them. But the market itself cannot stop development and cannot stop, the traffic solution that we're trying to ensure that we put an end to.
The 37-kilometer long Red Line will run from Marina to Agbado. Then we stopped at the iconic Marina station, which is the last station for the Blue Line.
It's extended over 200 meters and is an elevated station, right? They are on track. We're believing that one more floor is what is needed before they do a full wrap of the station. Our promise on the Blue and the Red Line are still on course. We're believing that with the contractors coming on a quarterly basis now, on a quarterly basis to come and supervise them, we'll ensure that before the end of this year, we'll see the trains on top of these tracks. That's our commitment.
The Blue Line will run 27.5 kilometers from Marina to Okukumaiko with 13 stations and end-to-end journey time of 35 minutes.
Since the beginning of 2021, local cooking gas consumers have endured escalating prices of the product for various reasons. Despite a proven estimate of 206.53 trillion standard cubic natural gas deposits in Nigeria as on the first half of the year, the price of liquefied natural gas, also known as cooking gas, has surged higher, with about 5 increases recorded from April this year. According to data from the Statistical Bureau, the averaging price for the refilling of 12.5 kg cylinder gas increased by 36.5% month-on-month and 49.97% year-on-year in September. The hike in prices has forced many women into harmful alternatives such as using firewood and charcoal as other sources of energy for cooking. They are made to endure the intense stifling smoke emanating from cooking with firewood, the third greatest killer of women and children in Nigeria, as quoted by the International Center for Energy, Environment and Development. The federal government, through the Minister of State of Petroleum Resources, Timothy Silva, has attributed the surge in prices to global scarcity and imposed value-added tax on the imported LPG.
We must understand that cooking gas is not subsidized. It is already a deregulated commodity. So the price of cooking gas is not determined by government or by anybody here in the industry. In fact, gas prices are determined internationally. And you are all aware that in Europe today, gas prices have gone up. So the pricing of gas internationally now affects also the price of gas in the country. Apart from that, there are some issues around VAT charges on imported gas and, of course, taxes on imported gas, which we are handling. But, of course, while handling these taxes on imported gas, you must also juxtapose it side by side with the local producers of gas. So if you incentivize the importers too much, then you will also kill the local industry. And also, you don't want to incentivize the local industry at the expense of the import. Because if you incentivize the local industry at the expense of the imports, then you will not have enough gas produced within the country. So these are the issues of balancing that the midstream and downstream regulatory authority are handling. And I want to assure you that we are quite concerned. Mr. President also is very concerned. He's aware that the price of gas is high in the market, and we are doing everything to see how we can bring down the price of gas, especially as we approach the Yuletide.
But some key players in the industry disagree.
Well, we always want it exotic. We will import toothpicks, and you need dollars to import toothpicks. So, and when you do that, and you don't produce anything, what do you expect? You have to be sincere. What do you expect? You keep importing, you don't produce anything, and you keep saying, why are you devaluing? Are you not the person who is responsible for it? Those of you who keep asking for dollars for those things that we can have here in Nigeria. But when tomorrow he is to sit down to talk, he will say, why are you devaluing? Check him. He's the chief devaluer.
The prices are determined by the interaction of demand and supply at the international market. When the price of this thing when the price goes up, of course, it will affect on the dollars. And when dollar goes up, the cost of purchase, the landing cost, will increase in proportion with the volume of cash as it comes from outside the economy.
Despite independent marketers increasing the product from April this year, consumers are seeking a review of the government's policy.
The increment is too much. Like me that come from a big family, we used to cook morning, afternoon, night. When you fill your gas 10 kg, to not be up to 2 weeks, the money will just be exhausted like that. It's not good. Please let Nigeria government help us to bring down the cost of every other thing, not only the gas. Like the one that I want to fill now. Before is around 4,200. Now I'm filling it 9,800. Very high. It's not good.
Government to help us. Understand? Like this one that I bought now, I bought it higher, and sometimes the gas is not that much easy to get. They should help us so that they can increase the price. I don't think everybody should go back to firewood. We are not people in the village. People in the township are supposed to be using gas. So a lot of people now in the township are using firewood also. So I think federal government to do something about it, and state government also to help us too.
It is pertinent to note that the sharp price of the product might lead to further upward pressure on the retail prices in 2022 if nothing is being done.
And it's now time to bring in the feature on the show today as we're taking a look at the outlook for the agricultural sector here in Nigeria as food crisis in the country remains at alarming levels. The interview is coming up shortly. Thank you very much for still staying with us. Let's now deal with the crux of today's discourse. Nigeria's agriculture sector growth remained positive all throughout the year 2021, but at a considerably slower pace. The year 2021 was an eventful year for Nigerian agricultural sector. It witnessed the sack in September of the underperforming Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Sabo Nanono, but not much has changed since he left. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the sector grew by 7.95% year-on-year in nominal terms in the third quarter of last year, showing a fall of 5.57% points from the same quarter in 2020. Now, crop production remained the major driver of the sector as it accounts for about 87% of the overall nominal growth of the sector in the third quarter of the year 2021. While on a quarter-on-quarter basis, growth stood at 38.48% in the third quarter of the year 2021. No thanks to the high level of insecurity as well across the country, farmers have suffered about 50% production losses as a result of insecurity. Particularly, farmers in the northern part of the country have fled their farms over fears of being kidnapped by terror groups. Stakeholders across board are also calling on the federal government to redesign the nation's security architecture, saying that the situation is bringing about untold hardship on the already impoverished Nigerians as food inflation continues to rise, pushing many Nigerians into abject poverty. Well, joining me now to discuss this and much more, I have agribusiness coach, African farmer Mortgagee joining us on the show today. Thank you very much for your time and a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too.
Well, let's now start this discussion with food pricing in Nigeria. Looking at the consistent spike we've seen and elements fueling the surge, taking cues from last year, the year 2021, and then your proposal of strategies or mechanisms to control the price of food, and also the likely forecast for the year 2022.
Well, for the strategies, we need to deviate a bit from what we're used to. We focus a lot on the smallholder farmers. From data and feedback, it doesn't seem to be working. Basically around administrative issues in terms of implementation. So I think we need to focus a bit more on the SMEs, the small and medium, people whose farm projects have had issues, either through COVID, insurgency, and co. We need to, support them more because they have vested interest to get their projects back on ground. And don't forget, this is a campaign year, so to speak. So anything given out now will be, seen as national cake. So government should either tighten up to implement, which you and I know that may not work as effective as it should be during the election year. But we need to support the small and medium now as against the rural farmers and, reverse it, 70-30, 30 to the rural farmers and 70 to the small and medium. And also, we need to be able to invest more in logistics. What do I mean by that? We need to be able to get food from the rural to the urban as fast as possible, creating more markets, maybe in every local government, especially in the urban centers, in the state capitals, such that what ideally should go to waste can move in. So government needs to partner with the transport companies to be able to get that done. If we do this too, you can be sure that we would do very well.
Now, do you also see Nigeria consolidating on rail transports this year and going forward, especially for food transportation, especially as the issue around insecurity remains largely the same, and now we're also looking at new creation of food hubs? Within the scope of the creation of these food hubs, how critical would you say is the need for sustainable transport from the farms to the marketplaces, and also trying to eliminate the menace of middlemen?
Because we don't know the plans of government, we just know that there's been a lot of advancement in the rail development, the investment in the rail. I've taken the train a couple of times, and quite a very enjoyable experience. And mind you, it can get very cold in the train, so which means that is good for the cold chain. Government needs to, double up efforts to ensure that we can move agricultural produce via train. One, it's consistent; two, timely, and three, you can ensure that the quality you will be eventually getting would have a good shelf life. So we need government, as a matter of urgency, to put those trains that can move agricultural produce. That would help in reducing post-harvest losses. That would help in getting them to the processing plants. And that also would trigger many people setting up processing plants very close to train stations because they can move their farm produce. It cannot be overemphasized. If the current government wants, to really have some very good scorecard with farmers, knowing election is coming, they need to double the game in that direction. The rail would, reduce cost of transportation and also the risk. The dairy farms are mostly in the north. They would rather use the rail than go on the road if the rail is working. And so it just makes life easy, and you can be sure that we will be food secure faster than projected if we can double efforts in getting the trains that can move agri-produce.
And let's paint the picture as clear as possible. We haven't necessarily put our best foot forward when it comes to value addition, especially around processing and storage. How do we begin to change this narrative and wield a bigger investment base to support processing and storage in the country? This is really capital intensive.
Yeah, yes, it's a slow process for Nigeria. If we will get it right, we will just have to start with what we have. When I mean start with what we have, I mean we should not go for any sophisticated storage. Many will want to go for silos. We have to import them, and so we should just go, use what we have. It may not be the most efficient, but guess what? It's been feeding us for years. So this is not the year to really experiment on a commercial base. Where what we mostly do is to copy and paste as against copy and adapt. So we can copy, adopt it, and adapt it to our environment. So the middlemen have been storing food for long, and they've been the one feeding the country in and out of season. So we only need to work with them instead of trying to eliminate them. We try to eliminate the middlemen. They have been the ones that have been consistent. They've been focused in investing in that storage. So you can't wake up, no matter the policy, 2-3 years, you can't get them up. So you have to invest in them so that you can collaborate with them with a view to regulating them. So we need to work with what we have in the next 2 years, because the dynamics of election campaigning and elections come in. It's an average of 15 months of what we call sit down look. Basically, let's observe what will happen before we take action. So bottom line is that we need to work with the middlemen. We need to store more and in a more hygienic way, such that it's acceptable globally. But we should not try to do anything new in a big way. We should try to experiment new things in a small way. Outside that, it won't work. But generally, what we do over the years is that we write great proposals from good big consultants, and at the end of the day, nothing works because it's not adapted here.
And still looking at a bigger conversation as to supporting agriculture in Nigeria today and taking it back to the days of making it the mainstay. State governments and commissioners of agriculture, minister of the sector as well, They have a clear task ahead of them, really. But a blueprint to catalyze the prospects remains the biggest hurdle for them to cross over. We've pushed the conversations around state producing crops and producing their areas of comparative advantages. But in the case of blind spots now, as well as how we should also prop up for the role of public-private partnerships, bringing fresh insights and roundtable discussions, how do you see things panning out really this year?
Well, when it comes to being passive or just talking about agriculture, you take it from federal to states to local government. You check the budget. You check the national budget towards agriculture. That gives you an idea of the seriousness of government, or how enlightened government is about food security. And when you check, so you can say, the budget is for the whole country. Then the state, when you check the budget for the state also, it lets you know that many of our administrators, they are not aware or they are not favorably disposed to the effects of not having adequate budget for agriculture. But one thing everybody forgets is during elections, it's the rural people that votes. It's the people in the outskirts that votes. So yes, you're right with the state governments abandon most of their roles to federal, blaming federal. The state governments are not across board. When you check vis-a-vis potential, I'm not sure any state government is doing 30% of the potentials in their care that they have 100% control over. Private sectors seem to always think they know it all, and government seem to think we can do without the money except for election years. So once we have a mindset change or a paradigm in our thinking, then PPPs will work. Given the right project to the right investor, not the investor with the deepest pocket, that will make things work. But it's all dependent on the focus of the administrator in each state and the focus of the administrator at the federal level and also at the local government levels. So it totally depends on mindset shift. We need to have a paradigm shift to get things done.
And wrapping up our conversation, let's now talk about the role of research, creating more resistant crops and also improving on the base we have right now, looking at livestock as well, and then the role of value addition through research.
Now, you see, I would say this from experience. I'm well networked and well exposed and traveled within the research institute across the country. And I can tell you that almost like a 95% of whatever we need in terms of research is gathering dust in the research institutes. They've done it many years. They're just looking for private sector and government to dust it up and scale. A couple of years ago, I was in a West African country in search of opportunities for about 10 days. I came back with a particular maize that would help get livestock, the livestock meant for meat, to get to maturity 3 to 4 weeks ahead of scheduled time, natural maize. And I thought I had gotten a discovery just to talk to a friend of my previous contemporary of mine in school, and it took me to the seed bank, and I saw the product there. They completed the research some years back. So what we basically need is to go dust off the research, commercialize them, and initiate new ones and fund it. We need to fund the research. What we're mostly doing in Nigeria is to just go and import some seeds, try them out in the country, and after you try them out, now scale and continue to depend on those countries to give us the seeds. Meanwhile, we are supposed to scale what we have. So research and development and food security go hand in hand.
Okay, now, sir, finally, just before I let you go, let's look at the reality on ground and one of the biggest concerns for Nigerians in the year 2022. Do you think we'll still see an increase going unabated in the price of food so many Nigerians cannot feed?
Well, so there are two sides to every coin. So the reality now that it will be deceptive for us to think because temporarily the price of food will come down because this is harvest season for quite a number of crops. Many fruits will be coming out in the dry season. But when we begin to get to April, May, June, the prices will continue to go up again. So it's not looking good, considering that climate change, insurgency, insecurity, agitations, we have that low budgets and co, but we can do something about it. And the private sector and let me use the word political will needs to come from government. It's looking very bad. However, if as Nigerians, I've always said this, whatever a Nigerian sets their mind to do, they accomplish in record time. We can still create an economic miracle in 2022 and 2023 by just applying and bringing. It's looking bad, but it can be reversed when the right people are involved.
Thank you very much for your time on the show today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, African farmer Mogaji. Do have a wonderful new year.
Thank you for having me.
And on that note, this is a wrap on the first edition of Business Week in the new year. Many thanks for watching so far. Enjoy your weekend, and once again, a happy and prosperous new year to you. I'm David Alabi. Bye for now.